Hi guys, welcome to Cow Corner Cricket Cast. I'm your host Pratham. I'm joined by my mate Rohan. After a hiatus, admittedly, I had my birthday. I swear, Headingley Test matches always coincide with my birthday.
Yep.
And the Stokes innings, for example. And then Rohan, obviously, in his case, actually had to move cities, which from all the stories I've been hearing from him, was a bit of a crazy experience overall. But so it's been a while since we've been covering matches, but we're back for this, the fourth test, day one of this India-England series in 2021 at the Oval. Going into this particular day, I expected an oval pitch that would be very friendly for batting, arguably the most friendly batting conditions throughout this entire series. And our expectation was that we would see probably whichever team that batted out first to probably be still there at the end of the day with a score around 250, 300 perhaps for 5 or 6 wickets down. Instead, 13 wickets fell in the entire day, the most in an oval test run since 1926.
Back when they had uncovered pitches and
timeless test matches.
Yeah. This is a this is a historic test.
Needless to say, this was not a pitch where you should be losing 13 wickets on the first day. Because guys,
that was true, and the move, there was a little bit of swing. Don't get me wrong, there was swing consistently for the English bowlers.
Yeah, there's some overcast conditions.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It should not be a wicket. Like Leeds, I understand, right? Like you look up in the ball in this clouds, you're gonna get bowled out for 30 or 40 runs, less than you're expecting, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even 30 or 40 runs. Period.
Yeah. But this pitch had consistent bounce more often than not. Yes, the odd one did bounce rear up from a length if you bent your back into it, but by and large, pretty consistent bounce. Even carry, good pace on the slower side, slower than most oval wickets, I will admit, that I've seen, but still had a bit of a green tinge on it. So again, some seam movement available on the first day, as you'd expect on an oval pitch.
No, I mean, as you'd expect from any English pitch.
Yeah, but I mean, really pretty decent conditions to bat in, especially if you just saw off the new ball. And today, actually, what was odd was that India initially
off the new ball.
Yeah, not only that, they started belting the new ball. I mean, what was the initial partnership? 28 runs off 7 overs, 4 runs and over. That's pretty quick. In his first 4 overs, over pitching a little bit, but unfortunately being too floaty in the process. Yeah. And so Rahul was able to play that lovely, late cover drive of his more in the squarish region. Rohit was able to was struggling a little bit on the other end against Robinson, which still set in. And then after that 28-run partnership start, the man who has been absent for England in so many years, but a guy who England's been needing.
He's a quintessential English seamer.
Yes, his record in England is unparalleled. A clear upgrade.
Everywhere else, he's kind of trash.
But in England, man does miracles. We're talking about Woakes, guys. He reared the edge off from Rohit Sharma. Got an absolute snorter, one that just lifted, jagged
all
away.
Sorts of things.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was an unplayable delivery. I don't blame Rohit for getting out with that. But then Robinson trapped Rahul at the crease with one that pinned him back. Again, some excellent bowling, a just reward for a really tight spell. Both Woakes and Robinson, after that initial Jimmy spell, which went for about 20 runs or so, pretty poor stuff. Managed to hold things back, bowl a bunch of maidens, stifled Pujara as well, who hit 1 boundary, and then eventually after 30 balls or so of just being at 4, got out to Anderson, who returned in the second spell and bowled a bit more dryly and induced the nick from, again, another very good Jaffa, good ball. So obviously India in huge trouble at 39 for 3. What they needed was a partnership. They didn't really get it, although Kohli hung in pretty well. Actually, for the first time, looked assured in the series with the bat.
I'll go further. This is the first time I've seen him confident at the crease. Just like genuinely confident at the crease since 2019.
Yeah, he genuinely looked excellent today. He was cut. He realized that he was getting out to the in swinger a lot, so he covered the line, moved closer, had a bit of a shuffle to move closer to the line of off stump to prevent, at the last minute once the delivery was being bowled, to sort of try to get to the line of the ball better, to not be susceptible to poking at the in swinging one that comes in, or worrying about that. And he covered the line well, played really well, got a 50, and then that man again, Robinson, snared him.
He had one more significant significant act with the bat, which was Shardul Thakur getting his half century, which again we are going to come back to because
I have many thoughts about. Yes, unfortunate.
And then England, get a chance to bat, and Jasprit Bumrah does Jasprit Bumrah things. I think that's the simplest way of explaining it. He just did Jasprit Bumrah things. He does things that
he got he got extra bounce that unsettled Burns. He chopped it back on the stumps, and then Hamid playing a bit of a wild shot, but the delivery that wasn't wide enough to cut, but one that bounced extra, so he sort of went for it.
Yeah.
But England had seemed at the end of the day to stabilize and get a partnership that was worthwhile. With the about 40 odd, and it looked like Milan and Root in particular, looking in scintillating touch, was going at run a ball at one phase. But then Yadav, the man for the hour, probably delivered the best ball of the match, a delivery that looked like it was gonna go away with the swing, and then nip back at the last second, a huge margin, and bowled him.
To quote Jeffrey Boycott, that's a magic ball.
You're not gonna play those, and Root obviously just got a really good one. And so at the end of the day, the night watchman at the crease, Milan at the crease as well, looking pretty well, solid, very set. At 53 for 3, a bit of a shock for England, obviously, but having bowled out India for 191, with the main chief destroyer, if you will, being Chris Woakes with his 4 wickets and Robinson with 3, you've got to say slight advantage to England. So coming back to India's woes, a lot of those have to do, as you were saying, with team selection, right?
I don't know how to put this. When you are making a team and you see the other team has 4 left-handed batsmen, who do you pick? Do you pick a left-handed so left armer, or do you pick an off spinner?
Off spinner.
Okay. So that's not what India did. Virat Kohli doing a press conference. The third time, by the way, this isn't like this. People were saying, "Oh, it's like a gotcha question," right? This reporter. No, I mean this is the question that he's been asked every single match this entire series. Why have you dropped Ashwin?
Yeah.
Right. And there are many answers, but Virat Kohli could have said, "Look, we want to try a 4-man pace attack. We want to see if it works." It's not that we don't think Ashwin's good enough. It's that we think that we need to develop our pace bowling attack, especially for more overseas trips, because Ashwin is not going to play forever.
Yeah,
right?
But his quote
was that, and this is the second time you said something so stupid that I don't understand it, right? And I don't mean that Virat Kohli is an idiot, right? Virat Kohli is a very intelligent cricketer. He's a decent character.
He's a fantastic batsman, even in this form. Right?
Yeah, he got a 50 today and looked like the best batsman on the planet.
Yeah.
When Joe Root was playing in the same match.
Yeah.
But he said, we are going to pick Jadeja because Jadeja is better against left-handed batsmen than Ashwin.
First of all, the stats don't back that up.
Stats don't back it up. History doesn't back it up. This England team, same England team that is currently playing,
minus
Dom Sibley with Hasib Hamid,
Who's it?
Chris
By the way,
Rhodes.
Ron, who was the leading wicket taker the last time these two teams met in a Test series?
I don't remember, brother. Why don't you refresh my memory?
Yeah, with some 30 plus wickets, it was Ashwin.
Okay.
Yeah, with a team which had less left armers than this one, and he ended up clearing up the left-handers for fun, including, so it has to. You have to say something to that effect, right? But
Yeah,
guys,
I
it
mean,
might
I
seem
think
kind of hard. Might seem kind of mean-spirited from what we're saying, but really, the reality of the fact is, any professional cricketer would tell you this. Spinners are more deadly against batsmen who they turn the ball away from. And the reason why that's the case is because you can keep different angles, modes of dismissal in play. You're more likely to induce the nick. You're more likely to induce the stumping, for instance, because you
can beat the outside edge, and
Exactly.
and of course, because every spinner in the world nowadays has both the arm ball and the ball that they normally turn.
And the arm ball specifically is much more dangerous for getting a bowled in LBW when it's being used as the variation against a batsman and going into their stumps after they've been set up with the away ball. So
Right.
it makes no sense even from a bowling standpoint, let alone
Right.
what happened with the bat today, right? And besides that, on this ground, the Oval, he played a match. He actually played an FC match. Yes, I know the English county standard is not great, but he played a match and he took 6 for like 29 or something. Shout out Nottingham. Shout out. I think it was shout out Surrey for like 67.
Yeah.
Like it makes no sense even if you're looking at just from a purely ground perspective. But let's take that aside, right? With all the bowling facets and so forth. Ashwin is a very good defensive bat in these conditions. He's not going to score you a lot of runs, but when there's a
Well, he has more. I'm just going to say this. He has a more recent Test century than Rahane, Pujara, Kohli, Jadeja.
That's true. But even outside of that, right? He
I'm
is
just bringing that up because
Yeah, no, I know. But he is a good defensive bat for these conditions, and you need one to stave off a collapse when your batting lineup is prone for getting out in this particular way. Now,
By the way,
Yeah.
he did that in the last Test series in England against England when he
Yes.
was healthy. In fact, he got hurt playing that job. So, I mean, if that's the reason you want to protect him, that's fine. Just say that. You're like, look, he got hurt last time. We don't want to risk him having an injury because we're about to have a massive home season and we're going to need him healthy, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to say that, that makes sense, right? That's a logical thing. Don't say nonsense like he
Yeah.
can't get out left-handers. It's
Yeah.
like, this is the man who averages under 20 to
against
left-handed
left-handers,
batsmen.
it makes no sense.
He's the best. He's statistically the best bowler in the world against left-handed batsmen. The
Yeah.
only bowler that's even close is Kumar Roach, who averages, I believe, 4 runs more than him. to
And
left-handed
and
batsmen.
what's even more depressing about it, coming back using Ashwin's sort of lack of selection here as context, right? You know who's the second best bowler to left-handers in this lineup in India? India's attack effectively, Ishant. And Ishant, who
he's dealing with injuries, right?
Right.
And
Right, but given that context, right? Given that context that your second best bowler, your pacer, who would have been good against lefties in particular, if that was again the argument, is out, you have to pick the bowler who's good against lefties when there's 4 of them. Coming to the other team selections, right? Today, they picked Umesh, right? And they picked Shardul, right, as the 2 pacers. So they swapped out Shami out.
I have no issue with them picking Umesh. I think Umesh he's their number. He's in India's number 4 seamer. That's his job.
He is, although I will say today, he didn't bowl well enough.
Until that second spell. The second spell he bowled really well.
Yes.
First spell
Yes,
was really.
and he was given the new ball, which was another baffling decision, because Umesh is not known for his skills.
Umesh is an old ball bowler.
He's a reverse swinging bowler
Yeah,
in the mold of a
he
Shami
is-
outside India, right? He
averages like 30 or 40.
Yeah, and the thing that's so irritating about this is, right, Kohli made this mistake in the last overseas series where he lost a test match in particular at Perth, right? And he gave the new ball to Umesh in that match, and Umesh didn't utilize the new ball effectively. And it was for similar reasons like here. He bowled better here today, but he bowled too wide, bowled a little bit too short. So he wasn't making the batsman play enough. So even though the figures look decent, right, in terms of economy, that opening spell didn't quite do the job. When he started pitching it fuller and swinging it back into the right hand.
Yeah, the second spell was brilliant.
Right.
And I think what makes it even worse, right? Virat Kohli has made a decision that he's going to pick four seamers in this match. Okay, Jasprit Bumrah picks himself, right?
Yeah.
Mohammad Siraj, he picks himself. Umesh Yadav makes sense. He's in for Shami, right? That's like for like.
Yeah, but then the fourth seamer.
The fourth seamer is the option, right? You take Shardul Thakur, and the one thing Shardul Thakur is actually very good at is outswing.
Yeah,
with a new ball,
and he's not.
It doesn't matter what format of cricket.
Yeah, and he's not
new
quick.
Ball, give him the ball. Let him bowl outswing, right?
Exactly, because he's not quick, and so the only time you can effectively utilize him, bowl him on the trot, would be with the new ball. But they don't pick him like that. They pick him as a fourth seamer, and
they use him like a fourth seamer. Like,
and he didn't bowl well as a fourth seamer today either. I mean, he only bowled 4 overs, but he started off with a long hop. Root and Milan looked very comfortable against him, never threatened at all. And so it was a baffling decision. Now that you've brought up Shardul Thakur, though, we have to talk about Shardul Thakur with the bat. And I've been dreading this. A long time listeners
saying this. In private conversations, I've been saying this. He is India's Ashwin AGAIN. I don't mean that in a mean way to Ashwin AGAIN or Shardul Thakur. I am saying that Shardul Thakur and Ashwin AGAIN had that one brilliant moment in a big match, right? And
it's two now for Shardul. It's two now.
Now it's two. But okay, that's fine. That's true. But we'll come back to why that may not necessarily be a good marker. Let's put it like that.
No, today with the bat, obviously, he had a bit of a
he's top scorer.
Yeah, well, he was the top scorer, which is bizarre. But he had a bit of a slog, effectively a heave. He had played a lot of agricultural heaves where his balance was off, and in the process, he did play some really good shots. Admittedly, right?
Yes.
He played some.
Again, the man averages 20 in first class cricket. He knows how to hold the bat.
He knows how to hold a bat. He
knows what he's supposed to do with the bat.
He realized the situation where India were pretty much 7 down for less than 150 on the board. He realized that it was basically going to be his job to swing the bat and collect as many runs as he can. So I don't knock the guy for it. He played as well.
He played his role in the squad.
Yeah,
right? He should not have been in that position to begin with.
No, he shouldn't.
He did his job.
No,
that's the important thing.
Yeah. But he scored. He scored the quickest 50 on this particular ground ever, and that pisses me off very well because I saw comparisons now. Even the commentators were getting on another joke about him being equivalent to Beefy, to which I have a very simple answer for. No.
There's a reason they compared him to Beefy, because you know whose record he broke at this ground?
Beefy. Yes, I know.
Right.
Depressing.
Do you know who? Do you know how many? So for his 50, do you know who he? Do you know where he ranks in terms of the quickest Indian 50s in Test match cricket?
I don't want to know, man.
No, he ranks one. He was one ball better than Virender Sehwag.
Okay.
And one ball worse than Kapil Dev.
This means we're going to have to pick him in another 15 test matches.
We're going to pick him in another 50 test matches, brother. 15? Excuse me. He'll be 50. They'll make him a 50 match player. He will probably end up playing more test match cricket than Jadeja will. Point.
Props to him for getting us to 191. He's had his day.
I think you have to give him a lot of credit, but I think the bad news for him is that he's about to be dropped because Virat Kohli cannot abide by a player that has more runs than him in the squad as a bowler.
That's harsh.
Hey, look, it happened to Ashwin scored a century. What happened to him? 4 matches later, immediately dropped. There was no reason for it. There's no reason for why he's still dropped, despite being India's most informed player this year. Doesn't matter. Dropped.
Gonna happen to Thakur. Shame.
Thakur, you got 4 matches, man. You got 4 matches to prove your worth. Otherwise, he's dropping you.
He got us to 191. But really, apart from Kohli and his useful slogging, if you want to put it that way, we shouldn't have gotten anywhere near even 150 because our batsmen were uncharacteristically poor today, and one of them in particular who had a shot of actually getting us to a total of 200, who threw it away. Let's talk about him, Pant.
I want to do this because he's a batsman that there's a lot of justifiable hype around. Right, he is a special player. He's been a special player ever since he's made his debut in Test match cricket in England, where I believe he scored a century.
He scored a century, not on debut. But
no, the second match.
On the third, it was the third match, if I'm not mistaken. Oval, actually, 50. So this pitch as well. But he's not had a good tour at all.
This is the worst I've ever seen Rishabh Pant bat.
Today, though, what we're seeing here really reminds me of another keeper, Adam Gilchrist, in the 2005 Ashes.
By the way, right? A keeper that he's often compared to.
Exactly, which is why I'm actually bringing that up. Gilly in the 2005 Ashes as well was in a similar mold where he was confident, over-aggressive at times, and what really has been troubling him, like it did Gilly in that tour, is a tall fast bowler who's been able to bowl a consistent line and length that is a bit away from him, sort of stifling him at the crease, and then bowling one that is wide and a bit short that he's chasing after to try to go and thwack. And like Gilly, he's obliging and he's keeping the slips and corridor, and more importantly, outfielders interested, because he's trying to break the shackles often in conditions that are seaming and swinging a little bit too much for his liking. And he's playing daft shots as a process because, again, he's just panicking and trying to chase after everything. We saw that today, right? He hits a boundary over extra also, cover for 4, gets dropped, and then 3 balls later tries to attempt the same shot again, and then gets out. Right.
Yeah, I think also just a part of that. I think there's a little bit of pressure on him because he has earned this reputation as the match winner, right? Yeah. Like Gilly had that reputation that like there were 7 guys there was 5 or 6 guys ahead of him who could score big runs at any given moment. But if they needed a clutch innings, they need a clutch 50, right, or a clutch 45, or
to get them out of trouble if they had like a poor batting show up front.
Right. It was going to be Gilly, right?
Yeah.
Rishabh Pant has had that. So again, they're very similar cricketers in that sense.
Yeah.
He's being asked to do a lot of work in this sense, in that way, where he's being asked to, can you save this match? Can you save this innings?
Or can you at least get us to a reasonable total, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of pressure, and you know he's still a very young cricketer. This is what his 3rd year, and no 4th year in Test match cricket.
Yeah.
He's not. He's being asked to do way too much. Is my view of the situation. I don't think that he's a bad player. I don't think that he's. I think he's struggling. Yes, but that's because it's such a hard thing for him to do.
No, I feel for him, and I think his keeping has improved from the first time I saw him here in England as well, right? So it's not all negatives, but it's just that you cannot keep on trying to when you're under pressure, right, like this, right? When you're being stifled by a really quality bowler, and Robinson has been a really quality bowler. He's bowled again to a plan and has stifled his movements at the crease. You can tell that Pant has sort of struggled to latch on to anything that's bad per se, right? So whenever he sees a delivery that's even a little bit too wide where he thinks it's a bad delivery, he's trying to go after it. But you have to have a little bit more, play with a little bit more batting sense here. And I'll give him just the example. We can sort of move on from this topic by just bringing up an example of a keeper who played in England, who batted better and learned how to be a little bit more patient, even though he doesn't have the best record here. Dhoni, right? During that 2011 series, when
the entire team except him and Dravid were.
Yeah. Or even more importantly, in 2014, where he, realized that, okay, I don't really have a great technique to survive in these particular conditions, but what I do have is a certain sort of resilience. And so I'm not going to play the helicopter shot. I'm not going to play all these like crazy, like bottom-handed, hacks and slogs and cuts and so forth. So what I am going to do is I'm going to leave things outside the off stump, And if I take some knocks to the body, if the ball is rearing up and is in making me feel uncomfortable because it's swinging back, that's fine, right? And Pant's got to take a leaf out of that playbook and actually play better. I will say, apart from his bad showing and a couple other batsmen, which is why I felt like we shouldn't have really deserved to even get to the 191. The other factor that's been helpful for us, and it's been a constant every time a team tours England for a while now, is England's slip fielding cordon and just their fielding in general, but especially their slip fielding cordon, which has been...
When you're being out-slipped by Pakistan over the last 3 years, you have a problem.
Yeah, this is absolutely true. Like Pakistan, the one country where Wasim and Waqar would have probably blown their head off after a day's work because they'd had so many catches dropped.
Put it like this: Wasim and Waqar would have wicket totals closer to Jimmy Anderson or Shane Warne had they had proper slip fielders.
Yeah. With just the amount of matches they played, which is it just tells you everything you need to know, right? But no, it with the slip cordon, right? England make a couple of really fundamental mistakes, and it costs them. And they have been doing it for a while, and they don't seem to be changing with them. Some that are outside of their control, some that are not. So let's start with the ones that are in their control, because I think they're critical, right? The slip cordon again today was not close enough, in my opinion. To
they just don't set that support right at all.
No, they don't.
There are many ways. There are many ways to set up the support. Right? India and England set up their support very similarly, right? They're staggered, right? There's a player in front of a player in front of a player.
Yeah.
In that sense, right? So there's more coverage, right?
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. The Australians and New Zealanders spread more, so each player has more of a zone, and they don't block each other off in that sense. But the thing is, if you're doing that and you're England, you are too close together and too far away from the stumps to actually catch the ball.
Exactly. And it showed today, right? The reason why we're bringing this up, right, is because there were 4 catches that went down. Kohli, who scored 50.
Drop on what, 5 or something?
9, I think it was 9.
9, yeah.
And then Thakur also dropped, who was the highest run scorer, right? With the 57 that he got. He was dropped earlier on in his innings. I think it was a 22 as well. And again, good teams take slip catches to win matches, right? You have to, especially in England where the ball is going to wobble, it's going to seam around, where you're going to get the nick. That's the primary way you're going to get wickets on these surfaces. So for them to have a terrible slip cordon like that says some things. And to your point, right, about the way that the slips go. Obviously, as I said, not close enough. But as you mentioned, right, they're too close to each other. And we saw that even, when Johnny Bairstow took that great catch in the slip cordon, when he wasn't keeping.
He's taking you right in front of first slip space.
Yeah, and so you don't.
Why are you sending this close to the keeper?
A huge factor for why there's indecision a lot of the times, right? We saw today with the indecision with the Kohli catch, for instance, right? 2 players unable to figure out whether one should catch it in front of the other or not. With the staggered position is because they don't have stable slippers in those positions, right? Root, who not originally was a second slip, has moved into first slip. He's the one stable constant feature, but second, third slip, because of England's poor batting lineup in the recent years, where they've had to constantly chop and change, that's meant that they've chopped and changed a lot of their slip fielders as well. And so a lot of the young guns who normally would slip, your Crawleys, your Lawrences and so forth, aren't in the side anymore, and that's forcing them to look for other alternatives.
Let's not forget their best slip fielder, Ben Stokes, is out for the series.
And then Bairstow, who took that screen,
only fields a third slip.
Yeah,
it has to keep now because the first choice keeper is injured, and that's another issue for them because
and I get
the
that
first choice keeper is injured, their second choice keeper is injured. Now they're on the third choice keeper, who's Johnny Bairstow, which means that you lose another slipper.
So I understand the factors that sort of prevent that composition from being stable, But you still look at some of the more stable, constant figures in this English side, and you wonder why they're not slippers, right? Somebody like Burns, right? Okay, if Root wants to stand at first slip, even though he was pretty decent at second slip when I remember him when under the tenure of Alistair Cook, I understand he wants to be able to see the line of the ball closely for reviews and so forth. That's fine.
That makes sense.
That's fine.
That's perfectly normal.
But if you're going to do that, you need to pick somebody who's going to be a constant in the side as a slip fielder. And Burns, who came in at second slip today, obviously because he's sort of new to this role, at least in the international level, struggled with that, right? And so what they need to do is, going forward, even if other players come and sit into the side, right, they have to make sure that somebody like Burns is a constant in that particular position. Going forward to day 2, right, we sort of mentioned how it's going to be very contingent on Milan and Pope to do things effectively, right? Yeah. Largely, England will be expecting a big partnership from those last 2 recognizable batsmen, if you will, to sort of do the job before the all-rounders.
And before people are saying, what about Johnny Bairstow? Which is, Johnny Bairstow's keeping. This is the first time he's been keeping in 2 years.
Yeah.
So expecting too much from him with the bat is a little bit unfair. It's a little harsh. So he needs more. If he can give them 20-30 runs, that's enough.
Yeah, and again, once there's a big partnership that's set, right, between the likes of Milan and Pope, right, if they get a century stand or a century 150 stand, which is what England really would like from them ideally, the others can sort of they can bat around, but more importantly, India will be under the pressure, right? Because then the lead is conceded, and so chances will go a bit of begging unless there's a really inspired spell. So those 3, right, in the likes of Bairstow, Moeen, and Chris Woakes, the all-rounders, if you will, can chip. Even if they chip in with 25 runs or so on average, right, then you're looking at a total which is going to be 100 to 125 plus from India's, and it's going to be hard for India to climb that hurdle effectively, right?
Yeah.
My prediction though is going to be that England will end up scoring 300. So they'll not quite bat India out of the match, but they will score enough to where it will become a very almost insurmountable target for India to chase. I do think Milan's going to get his 100. I do think Pope's going to get a 50. And yeah, I mean, as an Indian fan, it's not looking particularly promising.
No. I'm gonna be a little bit more favorable to India. I think Umesh and Bumrah might, they're the 2 guys that if you expect something to happen, they can make something happen in this bowling attack.
And so as the pitch quickens up, right?
As the pitch quickens up, those 2 guys can bowl one. They can just really run in and bowl fast.
Yeah, it's going to be more receptive for that style of bowling. Yeah. They're going to need that extra pace to get the wickets on a surface where the green tinge will largely disappear, and it'll be a good batting surface, effectively, right?
Right. So I think they'll really get to 250 to 270 is where I'm thinking. So yes, India's under pressure, but it's not so much. It's not an insurmountable amount of pressure.
Fair enough.
I think the problem is that India's going to have to bowl on day 4 and day 5 of this match. I think it would be really, really, really helpful to have a world-class spin bowler in this lineup.
Against 4 lefties. Yes. And on that note, guys, we're going to be signing off. It's been great covering this match as
it's great
usual.
To be back.
Yeah, it's just great to be back in general. This was a madcap day. Several things that I was not necessarily the biggest fan of, but a good game regardless that we're seeing that's going to be shaping up. And on that note, we're going to sign off. So see you guys.
See you.